ripple effect of love for dads and families. Today, for episode 100, which I thought I'd never make it here, handling tantrums and meltdowns without losing your calm. I'm Christine Berna, stress management coach, supporting dads to be the best version of themselves. So here we go. Do you have children who are freaking out and you just want to lose your cool, or it's hard for you to keep your cool? I hear you. I've lost my cool when my little ones were having temper tantrums. In that moment, it's really hard to stay calm when they're screaming, they're crying, or refusing to listen. So let's see how we can break things down to help you handle it more like a pro dad instead of a frazzled dad who's like, oh, I don't know what to do anymore. They're screaming. I'm exhausted, right? So, what does it mean? Does it really mean when a child is having a tantrum? And understanding this is kind of key. So, recent research, and I've known this for a while since I've become a master EFT practitioner. They say the same thing as leading psychologist and neuroscientist and Dr. Shefali. I took a course called Conscious Parenting with her. Loved the course because it really spoke to me. I took it to reparent myself because my children were already adult children by that time. And it was really, really helpful for me to understand my parents' limitations. Not that they got up in the morning and they say, oh, how can we create havoc for Christine? Of course not. You know, that was far from their intention. They just did not know how to deal. So let's get back to this. So when your child is having a tantrum, like an emotional response, okay, they are not trying to be defiant. They are expressing their complex emotion that they do not know how to express. Okay? You can say, "Oh, but my 3-year-old knows what anger is and she's still having outbursts." Yes, or she or he. It is possible. Is it? And you can't figure out the trigger for it. Sometimes the triggers are a little bit hidden. So there can be, my first response actually is, there's many different levels to this question, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that researchers and neuroscientists say. And I believe that if your child is having temper tantrums and they're 3, 4, 5, you need to look within you. Because somewhere along the way, the child has not learned to regulate their emotions, to self regulate them. And what can you do? So many things. So let's go back to what tantrums really mean. They can mean emotional overwhelm, right? The child has intense emotions such as anger or frustration or even fear, and they are not able to control or manage it. If you have a 5, 6, 7-year-old having temper tantrums, that might be um, a different aspect to look at. Have they learned to manipulate you with their tantrums? Okay. A 2-year-old is not manipulating you anyway, most of them. But when they get older, are they using that to manipulate you? It's a learned behavior. You can look at your relationship with your spouse, with your children, and do you use anger, frustration to get your children to do things? Do you raise your voice and get angry so that they do things? So if you're doing that, are they mimicking you? Have they learned that behavior from you? So just take a deep breath. If your answer is yes, it's okay. Starting today, you can bring shifts, and that's what we're going to talk about. There's also let me just turn off my phone. I keep hearing it beep, and we don't need to hear the phone beep. There we go. So there's also the development, right? So tantrums are normal at 2. It's part of that brain development. But as they get older, if the duration increases and there's more things, there might be something else, right? Is your child able to regulate? Maybe not. Are you regulating so that they can learn from you? Generally speaking, as a child gets older, there will be less temper tantrums, right? My son was able to scream and until he was 4 years old. And I discovered it was because of how I dealt with things. I wanted everything to be perfect. I didn't like children being unhappy. Okay, some of us are that way, and it's okay. However, he played it against me. He was very, very smart, and he knew when to have a temper tantrum or a screaming fit. At one point, my husband said, "Leave him in his room and let him have his temper tantrum." And I'm on the other side of the door crying because it was so, so hard for me. However, he was right. My son never pulled another temper tantrum. Today, I would suggest different techniques and tools than that one. That's what had worked back then. So, what I'm saying though is that if you set a limit, you need to respect the limit you set, even though your child is screaming. And that's where the challenge comes. And that's how, if we don't, our children learn to manipulate us with temper tantrums. And you definitely don't want to go there. So maybe that'll motivate you to self regulate yourself while your child is having the temper tantrum so that you can stay calm in that moment and not all of a sudden get angry, or you don't want to leave them alone when they're having a temper tantrum. Having said that, I have a couple of stories I can share on that aspect of leaving kids alone. But before I do, you know, why is it that kids have these tantrums? Like, we know it's the emotional, we know it's the brain that's not all developed. We know that maybe they've learned patterns and they're trying to kind of manipulate us without, really being conscious of it. But there's also the communication limitations, right? Young children will have a tantrum because they can't express, they don't have the verbal skills to express their need or their frustrations. So it's important that we provide an environment that we keep them safe while they're having their temper tantrum. They might come for a hug and then walk away, keep hitting and pounding, and then come back for a hug, and it's okay. They are learning to self-regulate through that process. And if you can self-regulate with snap, tap, zap, or just breathing, staying well grounded, and knowing this is very important. This might help you as well. I didn't know this, but knowing that it's their brain needs to be doing this. They need to feel their emotions. As my daughter got older, she would say, Mom, I need to be angry. I'm like, okay, let me feel my anger. I need to feel it. And she was right. So bringing it back to the little ones that need to hear to feel it's an emotion. They don't need to be penalized, sent in a corner, sitting down in their room because they're having a tantrum. They just need to be in a safe environment. Now, sometimes if there's a big crowd, a lot of people, and they're all telling you what to do, you might want to go in a bedroom with the child and just stay with him or her and keep it safe, right? Because safety, the child's safety is the most important. Move sharp objects away and so on. I know I say so on. I forget sometimes that I need to mention more things. So make sure the environment is safe, nothing sharp. They can't fall over and hit their head or, move any objects that need to be moved. You can put them back after, right? While your child is having the temper tantrum. So there's also sensory overload. What is it that makes a child have a sensory overload? There are different things. It can be like a huge family gathering and they can't see you. You're out of their sight and they just panic and they have a meltdown. They need to be with you, especially if you have a quiet home and then you're in a noisy place. That might trigger them as well. But it can also be that they're highly sensitive children. Being a highly sensitive person, I totally understand this. Noise, sometimes light can be a trigger. Um, the way people look at us, the way we interpret the world at that point in time when we're little can trigger us. And it's important. Oh, and one more important aspect is if everybody's kind of arguing in the room, don't be surprised if you have a highly sensitive toddler that they're going to start crying because they can feel that and it doesn't feel good. So that's another aspect that most parents don't know about is that highly sensitive children feel things in their body. They will feel the emotions or they can even feel the pain that someone else is feeling. And it's super important to, if there doesn't seem to be anything that happened, but you can tell, like if you remove the child from the space and give them space to calm down, a safe space. And that's the bottom line. Until they feel safe, they will not be able to stop. And this is something I've tried. So I don't have, okay, pretend I have a baby, a toddler here, okay? And on the spine, you can gently tap as you're doing the snap, tap, zap. So breathing in, relaxing your shoulders, and exhaling while they're having their temper tantrum, right? And just keep doing that and notice how you are helping them self regulate because along the spine, you have some meridian points. If you didn't catch the episode, I don't know which episode I talked about this, but I had brought a 2-year-old to the park and I barely knew him. It was the first time I was meeting them and I knew the mom a little bit. And I said to mom, would you like me to take him to the park right beside? Because it was a farmer's market. And he was opening everything. He was bored and needed things and wanted mom's attention, but she was trying to sell the products she had brought. She said, oh, yeah. So we exchanged phone numbers and I brought him to the park. I know we live in a small community, so it's a lot safer than in the city. Wouldn't do that in the city, in a big city. However, coming back to the point, here I am at the park with this toddler, this 2-year-old, who's having a blast. And now I have to go. It's been 25, 30 minutes. And I'm asking him to go, and he's like, there's no way. He's running to something that's higher and more dangerous, even. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get this toddler back to his mom? Because I can't leave him here while I go get mom, can I? I could have called her. I didn't think of that option at the time. So at one point, he was sitting on a rocking thing and he was high enough that it was easy for me to pick him up. And I just started tapping and I acknowledged, oh, it must be so frustrating for you. And as soon as I said that, he looked up at me and, like, what? How can you tell? Like, he was not able to express the frustration of leaving the park to go back to see mom. So when I expressed it, he felt understood. He felt seen. He felt heard. And I kept tapping gently on his back and kept saying, pretending if I was a 2-year-old and I was taken away, like I didn't know exactly. I didn't know him much. Well, didn't know him much at all. And he calmed right down. And I said, are you ready to walk and hold my hand? And he said, yeah, we're going to go back. He held my hand and we walked back to his mom. Wasn't that cool? Like, I had no idea. I don't know what I was thinking to take him, but then I was really excited because it was an awesome experience. Okay. So sometimes there can be other issues. Had a grade 4 student who was autistic and had not been diagnosed. So sometimes there are diagnoses that need to be done. So bring your child to the doctor before school starts. The earlier you do, the earlier you know what the diagnosis is, and the earlier you can start implementing the strategies to manage those temper tantrums, right? So I know I was all over the place. However, in managing the tantrums, we did talk about stay calm, right? I just talked about validating the feelings, setting clear boundaries. You can teach them some coping skills, but I think you need to learn them first for you and your relationship with everybody in the family. Seeking professional help. The one thing that I did not say so far is create a safe environment, especially for that 1.5, 2-year old, 3-year old who's having a temper tantrum, throwing themselves, hitting things. You want to create that safe environment as well, because that is super important for your little one so that they don't get hurt. And those clear boundaries, stick to them, even though it's like, and that would be one of the first mistakes that you can do. One of the most important mistakes that you can do is to give in. Or another very important mistake would be to not acknowledge that they have feelings, right? And it makes the meltdown even worse, last longer. The next time that you have a meltdown, it might even get better. So let's snap, tap, relax, and release that. Remember, your child has not necessarily learned to self-regulate yet. When you self-regulate, they learn to self-regulate. I have another trick. The grocery store, or if you're going to a market, or in Buckout. I'm not sure what that word is in English, but where they sell lots of used stuff and people buy. And they've got all these tables and people are selling their stuff on their tables. I remember doing this with my son. However, if you do this, it's very important that you get somebody's support, okay? So I'm in the grocery store. My son is, I don't know, 3, 4, throwing himself on the floor. He wanted, I don't know, he wanted this kind of cereal, and I wasn't buying that kind. I was buying another one, or I can't remember what the food was that he wanted. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am not starting this. It was the first time he had a temper tantrum in the grocery store. So there was this grandma close by, a couple of ladies actually close by with their shopping carts. And I said, keep an eye on him. And I went just around the corner and I'm peeking, right, to keep a close eye. And as soon as I went around the corner, he stopped his temper tantrum. He got up and ran to find me at the corner at the end of the grocery store. So another time I was in France with a gentleman, and his daughter was, I don't know, I think 4-ish, 4 or 5. So it's normal for kids to have temper tantrums, right? And he had been chatting with me, so I think she felt a little bit left out, and she threw herself down when we were leaving and didn't want to come. And he's like, "Oh, see how she behaves? I don't know what to do with her." And I said to him, I said, "Let's just keep walking. We'll keep an eye on her." And we were taking a path. It was like, there was grass, and then there was a little bridge, and then the parking lot. And as soon as she saw us walk like more than 10 steps, she got up and she came and gave her hand to dad, and so that dad could hold hands with her. And that was that. And she never did temper tantrums that way again because she knew. So another dad one day had these on the roof, those windows that open up this way on the roof. And she'd stand on her bed and was throwing her toys outside. I mean, and people are sitting down underneath and, eating and stuff. So again, she wanted dad's attention and wasn't getting it. And what did I say to him? It worked. She never threw her toys out again. I said, "Oh, just thank her for having the toys and put them all in a bag. She doesn't need them. She's throwing them out," something like that. And she's like, "Oh, no." I said, "Well, if we give you your toys, will you keep them in your room?" "Yes, yes, yes." She never threw anything out. Just needed um, direct consequence of the actions. Sometimes we can't think of them. And if we can stay calm, it's always easier to see solutions for other people. It is for me because I'm calm. I'm not in this situation. While for me, it was harder to see things like that. But it's super important that you self regulate, you keep your emotions calm, and help guide your child. Now, asking your child during the temper tantrum, "What's going on? What can I do?" They're having a temper tantrum. Their brain is in survival mode. They are unable to compute. Okay. So just wait for the temper tantrum to subside to find out. With an older child, this might be possible. So, I would love to know, what's the hardest part of handling your child's meltdowns? Let's chat. We each have, maybe I haven't talked about an aspect that you're dealing with and you would love some help with that. Put it in the chat. Sharing this kind of information means that you are taking charge of what's going on in your family. I think it makes you an amazing dad to be able to say, I know this is not what society thinks, but I'm telling you my point of view. I think this shows that you're an amazing dad who is looking for solutions, and kudos to you. I believe in you and congratulations. And if you want more of a private way to handle the tantrums like a pro, let's work together on it. Give me a call. My link is below, or you can use the QR code right here. So until next time, I want you to take great care of yourself. I believe in you, dads. You can do this. You can create this ripple effect